A drunk man in New York tried to hit John Lennon. But what John did changed that man's life. New York City, October 23, 1980. The Dakota Building, 72nd Street and Central Park West, where John Lennon lives, where he feels safe, where tonight that safety is about to be tested. John is walking home from the record plant studio. It's 11:47 p.m. He's been working on new material, songs that feel important, songs that feel like a comeback after 5 years of silence, 5 years of being a husband and father, 5 years away from the chaos. The streets are quiet. New York in autumn, leaves falling, the air crisp and cold. John pulls his jacket tighter, thinking about Yoko, about Sean, about the life he's built, away from the madness of being a Beatle. He's 2 blocks from home, walking past a small bar called the West End Tavern, where the sound of shouting spills onto the street, where a man stumbles out of the door, drunk, angry, looking for a fight. The man's name is Michael Sullivan, 42 years old, construction worker, laid off 3 months ago, divorced, alone, drowning his failures in whiskey. Michael sees John walking, and something in his alcohol-fogged brain recognizes that face, that famous face. "Hey," Michael shouts, his voice slurred, aggressive. John keeps walking. He's learned over the years that engaging with drunk strangers never ends. "Well, hey, I'm talking to you," Michael stumbles after him. "You're that Beatle guy, right?" "John Lennon." John stops, turns around, his instinct telling him to run, but something else, something deeper, tells him to stay. "Yeah," John says quietly, "that's me. What happens next will change both their lives forever." Michael Sullivan staggers closer, his breath reeking of alcohol, his eyes red and unfocused, but filled with rage. "You think you're so special," Michael slurs. "With your fancy apartment, your millions of dollars, your perfect life." John stands there, calm, watching this broken man, seeing something familiar in his anger. "I don't think I'm special," John says, his Liverpool accent soft, non-threatening. "Bullshit," Michael shouts. "You're John fucking Lennon. You got everything, while the rest of us got nothing." A small crowd is starting to gather. People coming out of the bar, pedestrians stopping to watch, everyone recognizing John, everyone worried about what might happen. "What do you want from me?" John asks, still calm, still present. "I want you to know what it feels like," Michael's voice breaks, "to lose everything, to be nothing." And then Michael swings, a wild, drunken punch aimed at John's face. John could dodge it easily, could run, could call for help. Instead, he does something that nobody expects. He catches Michael's fist, mid-swing, and holds it, gently. "Brother," John says, looking directly into Michael's eyes, "you don't want to do this." Michael tries to pull his hand away, but John holds firm, not aggressively, just present. "Let me go," Michael shouts, but there are tears in his eyes now, not just anger, pain. "I will," John says. "But first, you're going to tell me what's really wrong." John doesn't let go of Michael's hand. Instead, he guides him to a nearby bench. The crowd watches, confused, fascinated. "Sit down," John says, not a command, an invitation. Michael, too drunk and too tired to resist, sits, his head in his hands, sobbing. Now John sits beside him, this drunk stranger who just tried to hit him, and waits. "I lost everything," Michael finally says, his voice muffled by his hands. "My job, my wife, my house. I'm living in a fucking motel, eating ramen noodles, wondering why I should even keep going." John listens, really listens, the way he learned to listen during his own dark times. "And then I see you," Michael continues, "walking down the street, like you don't have a care in the world. And I just wanted you to hurt. Like I hurt." The crowd has grown larger now, maybe 30 people, all watching John Lennon sitting on a bench with a drunk man who tried to hit him. "What's your name?" John asks. Michael Sullivan." "Michael," John says. "Can I tell you something?" Michael looks up, his face wet with tears. "I've been where you are," John says, "maybe not exactly where you are, but I've been lost. I've been angry. I've wanted to hurt people, because I was hurting." "You're John Lennon," Michael says bitterly. You've never been where I am." "You're right," John admits. "I've never lost a job or a house. But I've lost myself. I've lost my way. I've felt like nothing mattered." John pauses, looking at the crowd, then back at Michael. "In 1968, I was so depressed. I didn't want to live anymore. I had everything the world said should make me happy. Fame, money, success. But I felt empty inside." Michael is listening now, really listening. "You know what saved me?" John asks. Michael shakes his head. "Admitting I needed help, asking for it, and accepting it when it came." "Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact." John stands up from the bench, reaches into his pocket, pulls out his wallet. The crowd murmurs, thinking he's going to give Michael money and leave, but that's not what happens. "Michael," John says, "I want you to come with me." "What?" Michael looks confused. "I want you to come to my apartment, have some coffee, sober up, and then we're going to figure out how to help you." The crowd is shocked. Someone shouts, "John, don't. He tried to hit you." But John ignores them. He's looking at Michael, waiting for an answer. "Why would you help me?" Michael asks. "I tried to hurt you." "Because," John says simply, "that's what we're supposed to do, help each other, especially when we're at our lowest." Michael stares at John, trying to understand, trying to believe that this is real. "I don't deserve your help," Michael whispers. "Nobody deserves help," John says. "We all just need it sometimes, and right now you need it, so I'm offering." Michael looks at the crowd, at all these strangers watching, then back at John. "Okay," he says finally. "Okay." John helps Michael stand, and together they walk toward the Dakota, the crowd parting to let them through. Someone in the crowd starts clapping, then another person, then another, until the entire street is applauding, not for John Lennon the celebrity, but for John Lennon the human being, who saw someone in pain and chose compassion over anger. The Dakota building, John's apartment, where Yoko is waiting. When John walks in with a drunk stranger, Yoko's first reaction is concern. "John, what?" "Yoko," John says gently, "this is Michael. He needs our help." Yoko looks at Michael, then at John, and understands immediately. "I'll make coffee," she says, "for the next 3 hours." John and Yoko sit with Michael Sullivan, listening to his story. He tells them about his marriage, how it fell apart, not because of one big thing, but 1,000 small failures. He tells them about his job, how he was laid off, not because he was bad at it, but because the company was downsizing. He tells them about his daughter, who he hasn't seen in 6 months because he's too ashamed to let her see him like this. And John and Yoko listen, really listen, without judgment, without advice, just presence. "You know what the worst part is?" Michael says, around 2 a.m. after the coffee has sobered him up. "What?" John asks. "I used to be someone," Michael says. "I used to matter. I was a good worker, a good father, a good husband. And now I'm just nothing." "You're not nothing," John says firmly. "You're a man who's going through hell, but you're still here, still fighting. That's not nothing." "It doesn't feel like fighting," Michael says. "It feels like drowning." "I know that feeling," John says. "But here's what I learned. You can't fight your way out of drowning. You have to let someone pull you out." "Who's going to pull me out?" Michael asks. "I don't have anyone." "You have us," Yoko says, speaking for the first time in an hour, starting tonight. "You have us." Michael Sullivan wakes up on John Lennon's couch. At first he thinks it's a dream or a drunken hallucination. But then he smells coffee and hears voices in the kitchen. He walks in to find John making breakfast, Yoko reading the newspaper. Like this is completely normal. "Morning," John says cheerfully. "How's your head?" Hurts, Michael admits. But not as bad as my pride. Pride's overrated, John says, sliding a plate of eggs toward him. Eat. As they eat breakfast, John makes a proposal. Michael, I've been thinking. I have a friend who owns a construction company. He's always looking for good workers. I'm going to call him today. Set up an interview for you. John, I can't. Yes, you can, John interrupts. And you will, because that's what we're doing. We're getting you back on your feet. But I tried to hit you, Michael says. Why are you doing this? John sets down his coffee, looks at Michael seriously. Because someone did it for me once, when I was lost. Someone reached out, pulled me back, and I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I'd do the same for someone else. Who helped you? Michael asks. Lots of people, John says. My Aunt Mimi, even though we fought. Paul, even though we grew apart. Yoko, every single day. And strangers I met along the way, who showed me kindness, when I didn't deserve it. Over the next 3 weeks, John Lennon becomes Michael Sullivan's lifeline. He gets Michael the job interview, which turns into a job. He helps Michael find a better apartment. Pays the first month's rent. As a loan, not a gift. Because John understands that dignity matters, he encourages Michael to reach out to his daughter, and when Michael is too scared, John calls her himself. Your father loves you, John tells her. He's been going through a hard time, but he's getting better, and he needs you. The reunion between Michael and his daughter happens at a coffee shop in Queens. John doesn't attend. This is their moment, not his, but Michael calls him afterward, crying, thank you for giving me my daughter back. 6 weeks after that night on the street, Michael Sullivan is a different man. He has a job, an apartment, a relationship with his daughter, and something else, hope. He writes John a letter trying to express what that night meant to him. Dear John, the letter begins. I don't know if you remember me. I'm the drunk guy who tried to hit you on 72nd Street. I've thought about that night every day since, not because I'm ashamed, though I am, but because you showed me something that I'd forgotten. You showed me that people can be good, that strangers can become friends. That rock bottom isn't the end. It's just the beginning of climbing back up. I have my daughter back. I have a job I'm good at. I have a reason to wake up in the morning, and I have all of that because you chose compassion when you could have chosen anger. Thank you for saving my life, not just that night, but every day since. John keeps that letter in his desk drawer where he keeps things that matter. He never tells anyone about Michael Sullivan, not the press, not his friends, not even most of his family, because for John, this wasn't about publicity or looking good or being a hero. It was about being human, about seeing someone in pain and choosing to help. On December 8, 1980, 6 weeks after helping Michael Sullivan, John Lennon is shot and killed outside the Dakota Building. Michael Sullivan hears the news and falls to his knees, sobbing because the man who saved his life is gone. At John's memorial service, Michael stands in the crowd, one of thousands, but feeling like he's lost something personal, something irreplaceable. He thinks about that night when he was at his lowest, when he wanted to hurt someone just to feel less pain, and how John, instead of running, instead of fighting back, chose to sit with him, to listen, to help. Michael Sullivan lives for another 30 years after John's death, and in those 30 years, he makes it his mission to do for others what John did for him. He volunteers at homeless shelters, talks to men who have lost their way, shares his story about the night he tried to hit John Lennon and how John saved his life. John taught me, Michael tells people, that the strongest response to violence isn't more violence, it's compassion. He taught me that everyone, no matter how lost they seem, deserves a chance, deserves help, deserves hope. In 2010, 30 years after John's death, Michael Sullivan dies peacefully, surrounded by his daughter and his grandchildren. In his will, he leaves a letter to be delivered to JOHN Lennon, John's son. The letter reads, Dear Sean, you don't know me, but your father saved my life. I was a drunk, a failure, a man who'd lost everything, And your father, instead of walking away, sat with me, listened to me, helped me. I spent the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that kindness. I want you to know that your father wasn't just a great musician, he was a great man, and the world lost something precious when it lost him, but his kindness lives on, in me, in my daughter, in my grandchildren, in everyone I helped, because he helped me. Thank you for sharing him with the world. And with me, today, the story of John Lennon and Michael Sullivan is told in addiction recovery programs, in homeless shelters, in places where people have lost hope. It's told as a reminder that one act of compassion can change a life, can start a ripple that spreads far beyond what we can see. The bench where John sat with Michael still exists on 72nd Street, though few people know its significance, but sometimes, late at night, people who are struggling, who are lost, who are thinking about giving up, sit on that bench, and somehow they find the strength to keep going, because that's what John Lennon did. On October 23, 1980, he gave a stranger the strength to keep going, and in doing so, he showed all of us what it means to be human, not perfect, not invincible, just present, just compassionate, just willing to help. Michael Sullivan tried to hit John Lennon, but John didn't hit back. He didn't run away. He didn't call the police. He sat down, he listened, he helped, and he changed a life. That's the real legacy of John Lennon, not just the music, though the music matters, but the humanity, the compassion, the willingness to see the person behind the pain and to choose love over fear every single time. A drunk man in New York tried to hit John Lennon, but what John did changed that man's life. He didn't fight back. He didn't run. He sat down and listened. He chose compassion over anger, understanding over judgment, help over harm. And in that moment, on a cold October night, in 1980, John Lennon showed us what it really means to be strong, not by hitting back, but by reaching out, not by protecting yourself, but by helping others. That's the lesson Michael Sullivan learned. That's the lesson we all need to learn, that the strongest thing we can do when someone tries to hurt us is to help them instead, because behind every act of violence is a person in pain, and sometimes all they need is someone brave enough to sit with them and show them that they're not alone.